Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today I'm on location here at Hobson Freedom Park, and today I'm diving into it, just straight into the photography itself. Really no like pre-scouting or anything of that sort. Just because I really quickly found a subject that I feel like is really paired well with this quite beautiful sunrise as it's starting to come up now. And so yeah, it's just a nice isolated tree out in this open field. It's very, very sparse, just flat, pretty much grassland kind of habitat at this local community park, with just tons of soccer fields on one side and all this grassland on the other. And so yeah, I just found this isolated tree out here, and I was just thinking about what to do with it, kind of compositionally speaking, in the focal length. And I settled upon doing a 50mm perspective, just so it kind of just pulls in the viewer to the scene a little bit more, compresses the distance just a little bit, and I kept about f11 just to kind of emphasize that aspect of the image here. And so I kept my ISO pretty low, around ISO 200, just so I can get some minimal noise, even though it is kind of dark out still. And I actually used spot metering because I wanted to keep the tree deeply in silhouette and shadow. So that's kind of the idea I was going for, so that it emphasized the color behind it and really pull that forward into the scene, coupled with the focal length like I just mentioned. And I kept a really nice slow and shutter of about 3 seconds, which sounds really slow, but when you think about it, there's not much going on in the scene that's really moving at all. There's a couple of birds that keep flying on the tree, but that's not gonna really show up in the frame when you blur it, at least with a slow shutter speed like that. And the thing I'm thinking of is these clouds are moving ever so slightly, and it might blur it a little bit in these clouds and make it look kind of wispy and cool, kind of like in an abstractive sense, which is really neat. So at least that's kind of what I'm thinking, is I'm hopefully getting, and it's going to carry over in the image, the final result as well. And so yeah, it's been turned out pretty well, I think. 2-second timer. Of course, it's mounted on the tripod like most of my landscape kind of shots are. But yeah, it's just a nice overall morning. It's very cold. It's been lots of warm days in between this day, but this day seems to be really, really cold and frigid, at least here as we get towards the end of winter and into spring here. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to these nice, beautiful spring sunrises and just seeing how they all look. So I'm glad I got out here early enough to actually take some shots before sunrise, because that pre-sunrise color, in my opinion, looks even more beautiful than the actual sunrise. And as you can see, it's getting there. It's almost, you can see where it's starting to brighten up over that little patch there on the side, right beside the tree there, at least from this position. So it's starting to really brighten up. Even the few, like 10, almost 15 minutes I've been here so far, you know, it was pretty dark when I got here, but you know, it's getting brighter and brighter, of course. And it looks like it's gonna be a very sunny day, so my time here is going to be probably limited, at least to actually take any images. But you know, I feel like this is a great start to it overall. And yeah, I'm really liking the results. And oh, I forgot to mention, actually, I bracketed it a little bit, just doing 2 exposures simply for the sky, which would give it all nice and, you know, full color, at least in the detail, and then exposed for the tree, of course. And so, like I said, with spot metering, that pretty much means that it's going to meter for a very specific spot in the scene. That's usually one that the photographer themselves chooses there. So that's what I did, of course, and I did it for the tree, so that way it could be in silhouette. So that's a metering mode I don't really use too often. I would say almost probably 99% of my shots are taken in evaluative metering, simply because it just evaluates the entire scene in your frame. So as you can see, with me being on live view mode, of course. And yeah, that's pretty much how I take most of my photography. Every once in a while I'll do some spot metering or center weight average, but other than that, you know, like I said, evaluative is pretty good for, I would say, most types of the photography that I typically do here. So yeah, other than that, it's pretty much it to the shot. It's really gorgeous. I love isolated trees, as many of you probably know by now, I hope. And you know, I feel like it's gonna be another great shot that, you know, I get to add to the portfolio there. And it'll be fun, I think, to blend and mess around with the color and the exposures as well, just in editing software, and see what really kind of makes the colors pop and makes that silhouette look really nice and kind of distance the contrast between it. So yep, the sun rays is really, looks like coming up overhead here. So I'm probably I don't think I'm gonna take any more exposures. I did a couple of them, just a couple different brackets, not really too much varying the settings, but just, you know, just to ensure that everything's in focus and all that sort. So from here, I'm probably just going to start walking. It's kind of like an aimless walk. There's really, like I said, it's just lots of flat grassland. I'm just going to go over there. I may switch out for my telephoto, and I got my binoculars already on me around my neck. So I may do some birds because I am hearing the early spring variety of birds. I think it's too early, just a bit too early for like meadowlarks and other kind of grassland songbirds. They're a little more special. Just a little bit too early though. So, but never know. Could be an early one for them, but I still feel like it's just a couple weeks too soon for those kind of spring birds and all that. Actually, before I start, I'll just mention a few kind of, I guess, historical facts about this park. There's not too much info that I could gather and research about this location, but I did find online on the official Parks and Trails website that this land in this park was acquired in honor and named in honor of the former Congressman Dave Hobson. And it's about 92 acres total. Like I said, wide open space. So just for passive recreation and all that sort. And I guess, in this case, nature photography, which is cool. But like I said, it kind of just, it's flat land, goes all the way back to that tree line, if you can see it over there. And there's like this little shed kind of, building, I guess. They probably store like equipment maybe for the soccer fields, which are over here. And then, like I said, over here, sorry, I keep twisting and turning, you got all the grassland stuff. This might be the nice spot for potential maybe birds or something, I don't know. And then over here, kind of like a little shelter, and there's more like a kind of like a community park style thing where it's just got playground equipment and all that. But yeah, also forgot to doubly mention here, I won't shut up about the shot because I'm really looking forward to editing it and putting it together here. But I'm thinking, there's a porta-john that's kind of just distracting off to the right side of the frame, so I'm gonna have to clone that out, obviously, because it's just way too distracting. This little blocky, man-made looking, just jagged line, shape in the frame there, and then unfortunately I couldn't really from this position get rid of it. There also might be on that right side a potential sign that's in the way as well. And then I'm just thinking I might squeeze. It might be a little constrained, but I'm just gonna try it out, of course. I'm gonna test out the crop on there. Might do something like a 4x5, horizontally speaking, kind of crop. So it just kind of eliminates all this kind of blank space. We'll say negative space in this case, on the side of the tree there, on both sides, and just see just how it looks. It might look, like I said, too tight and constrained for the image I have in mind, but it's worth experimenting with, of course, and seeing how the result would look like overall. But yeah, because it's just interesting. It's an interesting subject, I guess, in the way I composed it, because usually I'd argue against just centering your subject in the frame, but of course that's more of like an exception than a rule. Rule of thirds, it's more like a guideline. I like to call it guideline of thirds a lot of the times, simply because it's not meant to be taken literally, like as law. It's not something that you're just always going to be doing, but every once in a while it's nice to get some variety, off-center your subject more often than not. But honestly, in this case, it just looked better if I centered the subject just right in the middle of the frame and got those beautiful sunrise clouds right, just positioned behind it, all that. So in this case, I just went ahead with that. It looks like the sun is finally rising over top of the tree line in the horizon there, and it's gonna get real bright here in a second. But so I just wanted to mention, as I was walking around this tree on the other side, now you got the really just bright, sunlight just casting on it. It's really beautiful on this side, of course, and it's neat to see that change of, I guess, lighting conditions, because on the other side, of course, like I said, it's silhouetted, but then you just flip around on the other side of the tree here and you just get all this texture and form and just soft, nice, just golden hour light that's just really just hitting the tree on this side, which is really neat to see. And I really want to take a shot of it because it's a nice, pleasant blue sky position behind it, but there's just, I don't know, there's just too much. There's like some buildings, it looks like there's a church over there, and they're just to be honest, they're just kind of like distracting elements that would be on the other side, and then some fence line and other stuff. It's basically, it's a little bit more distractions, I think, on this other side where the road is. So I don't know, I might take a shot still, just to say I tried it at least, but honestly I'm not sure if it's worth it, just because that background's gonna be a whole lot more distracting, of course. But yeah, regardless, it's just some really beautiful light as I'm looking at it here, and yeah, it's just neat to see that. It always pays to turn around and look at the other side, no matter if it's sunrise or sunset. Just turn around and see what's behind it, because you got some pleasant light looking in all directions pretty much. So I just took my little walk around the one side of the perimeter of the park here, and I switched out for my telephoto lens, put on my binoculars, and just started looking for birds. And since it's nice edge habitat situated along the neighborhood that's just on this side, at least behind me here, and there's a nice tree line, we met plenty of little songbirds, lots of song sparrows that are finally singing since it is spring here, tons of red-winged blackbirds. And so in this case, here in March, is that the males always arrive much more sooner than the females, so that they can establish territory. So these males with their, they're striking all blackbird like plumage, and the red and yellow little shoulder, I guess you call them shoulders. They're not really technically shoulders, but on the sides of their wings there on the tips. And they use their metallic squawking, and they get on the tallest trees or the tallest plants, and they give off their display and their call, trying to attract mates. And yeah, that's plural, mates, of course. So yeah, seen lots of those, lots of killdeer. I believe I'm at about 10 species total so far for the day, which is pretty good for a park of this I guess size and all that, simply because it's not really the best birding hotspot, especially here in my county and area, but it is what it is, and I think it's delivering some great results and some great photographs overall. Actually, I think keeper shots of red-winged blackbirds, a song sparrow that's singing, and then lots of American goldfinches at the bird feeders that are situated along those neighborhood houses, because I've seen a lot of bird feeders laid out right next on the other side of the fence from them, which is really nice. So that of course helps attract more backyard birds. And so yeah, I got tons of goldfinch shots. So I did all that, and then I'll go along here, which this is the soccer field side. That was the more grassland side. I was hoping for some more variety, but I mean, lots of red-winged blackbirds, like I said, which frequently like to be in this kind of grassland habitat. But anyways, I'll go along this edge here and then go all the way to the end in the road over there, and probably call it quits for the morning here. The lighting's getting a little bit more harsh, but it's situated behind some clouds, which helps kind of diffuse it just a little bit. So in that case, it really helps out, because if it was just a bright, cloudless, blue sky day, I'd probably pack it up and leave by now, since I'm out in this wide open space and it's just so much plentiful light. But in this case, it kind of diffuses it just enough where, as long as I'm paying attention to my exposure and my settings, I'm really not going to end up failing with taking a shot, or like in this case, even a wildlife shot, and risk overexposing it, of course. So yeah, it's just like the just right amount, I'd say, overall, for this instance. It allows it to illuminate the scene, and it allows me to use a faster shutter, which means less camera shake and blur, just because I simply have really shaky hands. And it just lets in enough light to make that so. Anyways, so I'm gonna go along here on this other half, and I'm hoping maybe get a couple more bird shots, and then we'll pack it up for the day. I cannot emphasize enough how just vast and wide open space that this park is. And I know it's here in flat, boring old Ohio, but it's neat to see it, and I really feel like, given the very simplistic look of the park, and really there isn't much like natural features like waterfalls or any of that sort, but I mean, you got birds, you got a few like isolated trees out here in the open field, a gorgeous sunrise. I feel like like I had this morning, could do justice to it, and that's really what, of course, this on location series is about, as I keep reiterating, is that, it's all about making the most of the location you're at, no matter how big or small, it doesn't matter. And that's what, I'm going to continue to keep doing here with these videos. So as I'm going along here, it's really quiet now, which I'm thinking is just because it's simply later in the morning, and there's really not any bird song all of a sudden, at least on this side. So I'm really close to the car now, at least getting there, and I feel like I'm just gonna call it quits for this trip. But I got some great photos out of it, which I kind of surprised myself with, because I arrived this morning and really had no idea
of what I was going to be photographing. So, I feel like it really worked out in this case. So yeah, anyways, on that note, thanks so much for watching, everyone. This has been Hobson Freedom Park. Until next time, make sure to get out here. Thank you.